Hello and welcome to yet another Moebius video. For the past few videos I focused mostly on new releases, so I felt it was time to dive into one of his less known books, as the goal of this channel is also to look into his more obscure works and not just the classics, since to be honest there are already plenty of videos out there about the Incal, the Long Tomorrow, etc. And as usual I will be doing my best to make these videos insightful and dig into the backstories of how these books came to be. So let's cut to the chase and let's get to it. Today we'll be taking a look at a fun little book from 1994 called Les Histories de Monsieur Mouche. And if I've murdered this French pronunciation, please excuse me. And now that I said it, I will keep using the English translation for the rest of the video and call it The Stories of Mr. Mouche. Written by Jean-Luc Coudray and of course illustrated by Moebius, these stories of Monsieur Mouche is quite unique. A collection of short, wild philosophical stories mixing surrealist texts and quirky illustrations. This creation is really hard to describe, as it hangs in balance between being absurd, funny, and even charged with wisdom. Initially, the series came into shape after the famous avant-garde filmmaker and author Alejandro Jodorowsky discovered the short stories of Coudray in the magazine Psychopath. He was so fascinated by them that he cut them out and pasted them in his little notebook to read them aloud during a lecture that Moebius attended. And we actually have the account of Moebius as well, so he himself tells the story. And here is what he says. I discovered Jean-Luc at a Wednesday lecture by Jodorowsky, where he quoted traditional tales, Sufi stories, like that of Mullah Nasr ad-Din. And then he brought along a story by Jean-Luc that was in the same vein. And Alexandre explained that the formula was the same. Of course, I must have met Jean-Luc before, but it was from that Wednesday that Alejandro and I considered ourselves to be his first fans. Since then, I've had the privilege of working with him, doing my best to illustrate his Monsieur Mouche stories. I really had to put my heart into these drawings so as not to be heavy-handed and to be in tune with his spiritual qualities. And that was Moebius. Well, the result of this collaboration became a 14 stories long black and white portfolio, which was published in 1987 and then later expanded in the book we are looking at today, adding 8 more stories while also being printed in color. A few years later, Coudray and Moebius collaborated once again and produced the book called 2001 After Jesus Christ. But we will not look at this today, we will cover it in another video, but keep it in mind. So back to the book. Who is Mr. Mouche? Well, he's the main character of this book, of course, a cheeky and odd fellow, who is constantly challenging the reality around him and anything which is considered the norm. Sometimes married, sometimes single, sometimes a woman, sometimes a man. He's constantly in flux. He seems to have different jobs, interests, and fears. And is a character that, even if not created by Moebius, still fits right into what is a classic Moebius formula, where we as readers have no fixed point of reference and need to simply accept what is presented to us in the book. And this is probably exactly why Moebius loved it and chose to do the art for it in the first place. There is only one constant here. Mr. Mouche seems to have an answer to everything. And while most comical characters make us laugh at their stupidity, Mr. Mouche makes us laugh at his intelligence. To give you a taste of what these stories are about, here is one, the first one. It's called Lighter Than Air. Everything that flies is lighter than air, remarked Mr. Mouche. I hate to contradict you, said a scientist. But that's not true. Birds are heavier than air. How do you know? Asked Mr. Mouche. Well, I weighed one, replied the scientist. But was it flying when you weighed it? Asked Mr. Mouche. And all stories are in the same vein. A preface from Alejandro Jodorowsky from this book gives us a bit more perspective on what the core of these stories are about. So here it comes. An infinite number of spiritual masters have used short stories to awaken the consciousness of their disciples. These stories or jokes are created by the people and by word of mouth. They are then polished to perfection on the lips of spiritual teachers like pebbles in a stream. This collective genius needs centuries to elaborate and transmit these anonymous gems from generation to generation. They get to the core without the slightest ornament, and their content is so dense that they can be interpreted on different levels, from the vulgar to the most profound wisdom. I say this to reiterate that the creation of Monsieur Mouche by Jean-Luc Coudray has the marvelous anomaly of a miracle. This young man alone has succeeded in creating stories that have the same quality as those created by the collaboration of entire peoples. The uninitiated can laugh at Monsieur Mouche's idiocy, while the spiritual masters will use his particular pure and skillful way of seeing the world to enlighten their own students. And that was what Alejandro Jodorowsky had to say about this. So since the publication of this book, the stories of Mr. Mouche have never stopped developing. And Jean-Luc Coudray has published multiple expanded editions collecting over 300 stories and illustrations from a multitude of comic artists and illustrators. But when it comes to the book right here, there has never been an English translation, unfortunately, except for 3 stories published in an issue of Moebius Comics from Caliber Press. It was issue 6, if I'm not mistaken. Definitely not worth the investment, in my opinion, as these are really expensive and don't collect anything you cannot find elsewhere for cheaper. Plus, it was only published in black and white. So if you like this book, I'd say you look for it in French, and I think it will be a fun little piece in your collection. So yeah, that's the end, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and if you like this review and want more, hit subscribe and you will know when the next video will pop up. In the meanwhile, have a good one and catch you next time. Thank you.